Oh, we've not gone. Where have you gone? Okay, never mind. Okay. Hi, everybody. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me, Heidi? Yes. Yeah, hopefully everybody can hear me. Welcome to this evening's demo, or not a or talk. Just apologies that it's landed up at exactly the same time that Uncle Cyril was talking to us, but hopefully we can catch up with all of that afterwards. I'd like to welcome some new members to our society: Bridget Dilks, Anne Zwets, Marcel Spinks, Lynn Routledge, and Theo Elijah. Welcome to you all. We look forward to meeting you in person, hopefully soon, and we hope that you enjoy your time with us. Then there are just two notices I want to just mention. The Tolman Bushard Finlayson Art Award is back on track, and we received an email today, which we will forward to everybody. I know it's very popular with our members. Entries have to be in by the 5th of June, so there is still time, and all the information you'll find on the Hermanus Fan Arts website. And then I also just want to say a huge thank you to Constantia Village for affording us the opportunity of the 3 exhibitions we've had. Although sales weren't great, I do think that it was fantastic exposure for all of us. And also to just a huge thank you to everyone who helped with the exhibition. Without your help, we certainly can't do it. Okay, and then tonight we are thrilled to have Heidi Shedlock from Durban North. Heidi is what I think is the epitome of a young, successful artist who is not only painting, but putting a tremendous amount of other work onto the various social media platforms and into her career. And she's going to chat to us this evening about filling our creative soul tank. Something I think is a special message which we all need at this time. Thank you. Okay, over to you, Heidi.
Thank you so much. So can you hear me? Can you hear me fine? Okay. Right. Well, thank you so much for affording me the opportunity to speak to all of you tonight. It's lovely to be able to share in creativity, especially in this time that we all find ourselves in. I think to be able to connect with your creative self in this time can be a real blessing. And I do believe that we all have the potential to be creative. So to give you just a little bit of my background, I am a qualified teacher. I come from a teaching background. I gave up full-time teaching, though, quite a while ago now, to concentrate on creating my own work. But I guess the teacher in you never really leaves, because although I am very prolific at working in my own studio, I run a very successful art practice, and I have a wonderful collector base of clients that I've built up. But the teacher in me has never really left. So of course I have continued to run either workshops based on techniques, or also based around art coaching. In other words, helping others to tap into their creative self and helping them find their creative pathway. I can't tell you how often I get people saying to me, I'm not creative, and we're all born creative. We dance, we draw, we move before we ever learn to talk as babies. So I do believe that creativity is something that we all have in us. It is just something that as we get older, we tend to lose touch with. So I want to this evening speak to you about something that is very, very close to my heart. It is a topic that comes up so often when I'm speaking to creatives, or when I'm doing art coaching or art creative work with other artists, and the whole concept of creative block, or taking a break from creating. So often I think there's so much out there about creative block, and yes, there is such a thing. It is a real thing, having creative block or being able to get into a place where one feels like you can't create. But I want to share with you some things tonight about taking a break from creating, in the hopes that it can help you find that creative path again. Because I want to reassure you that although if you have been unable to create, and perhaps many of you find yourself in this situation, especially in the current times, even I've had so many people messaging me struggling to get back into being creative, I want to reassure you that to take a break from actually producing work is perfectly normal, and it is part of your creative process. But as soon as we are not putting work out there, we immediately start to think that, oh, I'm losing my creativity. I'm not creative anymore. I'm developing a mental block. Why am I'm not producing work? I'm never going to be able to produce work again. I'm not going to be able to get out of this creative funk. And so we tell ourselves all of these things, which kind of create this negative downward spiral. And so that is when creative block sets in, because we start to develop this mindset that what I'm doing is not normal. I'm not putting work out there, I'm not producing. Now, today I want to tell you that if you're in that place, it's okay. You are okay, and you are going to be okay, and you are going to create again, because we can use that time of not creating as being part of our creative process. So I want to use a bit of an analogy this evening. I want to talk about our creative soul tank. So I have I don't know if you can see this reflecting on the light, I apologize. I have got a little tanker here, and on the bottom here is a little tap. Now, think of this as being your creative soul tank. And when this little tap is open, our creativity is flowing and we are producing work. Great, that's where we want to be. The problem is that that's where we always want to be. And if we are not in that place where it is flowing and we are creating work, we start to panic. I want to tell you to stop panicking, because unless you learn to switch that tap off, this tank is never going to fill up. You need to switch this tap off and have a break from creating in order to refill your creative soul tank. So if I just left this tap open and I kept filling this container with water, it would never fill up, would it? It would just be this exhaustive, it would keep flowing, keep running, and eventually exhaustion would set in, creative exhaustion. If I switch the tap off, if I do it consciously, knowing that I am taking a break, there are so many things that I can do that can fill up this tank and stop me from panicking, stop me from feeling like my time is being wasted. And this can fill up until it is nearly overflowing, until you are so excited to get back to creating again, and you have not gone into a downward spiral of believing that your creativity has disappeared and that you are never going to create again. Switching this tap off and filling up this tank is imperative. It is needed in order for you to be able to switch this tap back on and the creativity to flow freely. So let's talk about a few things. First of all, what do we do during that time when that tap is switched off? Because what we do when we are having that time away from creating or time away from producing work, what you are doing in that time is going to hugely influence your mindset and your ability to come back to that place to produce work again. What you are doing in that time when that tap is switched off and you're not producing is also going to affect the type of work that you come back to create. The other thing is, how do we prepare ourselves to actually switch that tap back on again? How do we know when my tank is reaching a place where I need to be brave enough to put that tap on and create again? So let's talk about the first thing. What do you do during this time when you are not producing art? Now, we see artists all the time on social media. If anyone is making you feel like they paint every single day and are producing a brand new piece of work every single day, I'm telling you now that they are lying, because running an art business requires so much more than just painting. It requires invoicing and tidying your studio and meeting with clients and so many other things. So please, first and foremost, stop that pressure on yourself about having to produce a finished piece of work every single day or every single week. It doesn't happen that way. When you take that break from creating, nourish yourself. Think of that little seed that is sitting in the ground. How does that seed, when it is sitting in the ground, get to a point where it can bloom? It needs nourishment. So how can you nourish yourself? First and foremost, think of things in your life, for example, stress, and accept what they are and how it is affecting your creativity. So a prime example is the current situation we find ourselves in with COVID. It has created a lot of stress for many people. Know how that is affecting your creativity and address it. Actually think of how it is impacting you, how it is making you feel. It's important for you to not necessarily solve that stress, but acknowledge it, that it is there. Because by acknowledging that that stress is there, it makes you realize that it's okay, this is happening and it's not going to last. The other thing is surround yourself, nourish yourself by surrounding yourself with positive people. Surround yourself in that time when you are not creating with people that build you up, that make you feel good about yourself, that make you feel like you are the best person that you can possibly be. So pick wisely the people that you are spending time with. Don't go and spend time with people who are saying, oh, you're not creating artwork. Have you lost your creativity? People always ask that. Surround yourself with people that build you up, that are positive, that help you to be the best artist that you can be, even though you are not creating at that time. The other thing is think about your own self-care. Nourish yourself. How do you talk to yourself? Remember, the most important conversations you'll ever have in your life, and most especially in your studio, are going to be the conversations that you have with yourself. What are the conversations that you are having with yourself in your head? You'll speak to yourself in your lifetime more than you will speak to any other person, even your husband, your partner, your spouse, your children. You will speak to yourself more than you speak to anyone else. So make sure that that voice that is speaking to you speaks with kindness and speaks with love and speaks in a way that you would want other people to speak to you. So if you are taking a break from creating, nourish yourself, surround yourself with positivity, with positive people, and most importantly, speak well to yourself. Take care of how you are talking to yourself and the things that you are saying to yourself. The other thing is stop overthinking. Stop overthinking everything. We always think, I'm never going to be able to create again. I promise you, you are. Stop overthinking the situation that you find yourself in right there and then, and trust. Have trust that this is going to be okay, that my creativity is there, and I am going to find that place where I can create again. Every good relationship in our lives, whether it is with our spouses, with our children, with our friends, is built on trust. So trust your creative self. If you want to have a good relationship with your creativity, approach that relationship from a place of trust. You have to trust that you are going to produce those paintings again when the time is right. The other thing during this time is to find inspiration. That obviously sounds like the most obvious thing to do during a time of having a break from creating. What are the types of things we can do? We can read a book. And if you're not a reader, pull out some art books, some of your favorite art magazines. Pull out things that can inspire you, even if they're just visual. Pull out books, magazines, art journals, things that can inspire you, things that you maybe don't get a time to read or look at when you are perhaps producing. Visit exhibitions. Go and see what other people are doing out there. Go and have a look in your city or in your surroundings at the beautiful things that other people are doing out there. Visit places in your city. Go out there and see the places that you don't normally see. Actively seek finding new places to visit. Have you ever tried to be a tourist in your own city? We all normally try and avoid places maybe where tourists go, but find a new park that maybe you've never visited before. Find a beautiful building that perhaps you've never explored before. Do something that you have not had a chance to do within your own city. Go for a walk on the beach. The other thing, to feed your creative soul outside of the studio. So we're talking now about finding inspiration to feed our creative soul outside of our studio space, is think of the other creative activities that you love doing that maybe you don't get a chance to do. So for example, cook. Do you love to cook? Do you love to garden? Do you love to sew? Immerse yourself in a creative project of another kind. Use that time to sort out your garden or cook. Find other creative things that you normally don't get a chance to do. Decorate your home. You are still being creative. You are feeding and nourishing your creativity. You are still using your skills of observation, observing colors, textures, patterns, even though you are not painting or drawing or creating artwork. The other thing is for inspiration. Every single one of us have one of these dreaded things in our pockets or in our handbags. Cell phones, we always have them with us. Photograph. Document everything that you are seeing around you. Take a friend with you and go for a walk along the beachfront. Document what you do in your day. Document your walk. Document the things that you are seeing. I always use this term with my family. I always say to my family, eyes wide open. Because so often when we are walking along, I'll say, oh, look at this. Oh, look at that. And it's like, Mom, how did you even notice that? And I always tease them and say, walk or move around with your eyes wide open. There is so much inspiration to be seen if you just train yourself to look. Look up, look down, look all over, look in little places where other people don't even begin to notice, and document it. Document your family, document your loved ones, document people sitting in surroundings when observe them. All of those things that you are seeing and documenting will be food for your creative soul when you come back to creating again. And it's so easy to do because we have these with us most times. The other thing is getting inspiration online. Now, I'm going to speak about this twofold, from two different perspectives, because how lucky are we that we can visit places like Pinterest and Instagram, and while we are scrolling, be able to see all of these wonderful, inspiring creators from all over the world. Through little squares on Instagram, we get to have little peeps into the colors artists mix, the way that they paint, what their studio spaces look like. We are living in such an exciting time to be able to find inspiration from other creatives online. The downside of that, though, is that it can also be overwhelming. It can also be hugely overwhelming and can create a sense of imposter syndrome, where one is left feeling like you're perhaps not good enough. Maybe I'm not as good as that artist, or maybe I'm never going to be like that. I'm never going to be able to paint like that. So if you are starting to feel like that, then find your inspiration elsewhere. Have a little bit of a digital detox. And by digital detox, I even mean unfollowing or stopping yourself from going to have a look what a particular artist is doing all the time if that person makes you feel inferior. And I say that not because that artist is probably not making you feel inferior intentionally. It's how you are feeling when you are viewing what that person is doing. Have a bit of a break from going and checking up what that person is doing all the time, if that is how it is making you feel scrolling online. So by all means, find inspiration online, but be very aware of the emotions and how that is making you feel while you are scrolling, because no artist has happy days every single day. So if you're following an artist that is telling you that it's all hunky-dory and everything's okay, I speak very openly on my platforms about, I need a break, taking a break today, or I'm not painting today, because I think people need to know that sometimes what we see on those screens is not always what's really happening in an artist studio. So scroll mindfully if that's where you're finding your inspiration. The other thing is organize your space in this time. I get people saying to me, oh, Heidi, I went into my studio space and I just procrastinated because I just tidied things and cleaned brushes. That is all part of the process. So if you go into your space and that is all you get to do, that's great. It's part of the process. Use this time to go into your space, reorder supplies, organize your paints, make your space, however small or big it may be, a place where when you are ready to come back to create, it is organized and inspiring and a place where you really want to be. So organizing or even cleaning those brushes is not procrastinating. It's part of the process of getting you into a place where you love being in that space. And one of the probably most important things that I tell people to do, and this is the thing that most people will skip out, is to get yourself a little journal. Pour yourself your favorite cuppa of whatever it is, cup of tea, coffee, whatever your jam is, and find a quiet place to document your why. I want you to sit back and think to yourself, why do I create? What is your why? Why do you do this? Why do you want to paint? Why do you want to create artwork? In the mishmash of social media and exhibitions and all those ourselves to, we can so often start to forget the reasons why we are doing what we do. We forget our story. What is your story about why you create? It's also so easy for us to see, oh, look what this artist is doing. Let me try this. And look what this artist is doing. Let me try that. And so we're trying to be a million different people that we're seeing online rather than staying true to who we are as artists and what we want to create. I often get people saying to me, should I paint portraits instead of landscapes because I think maybe they sell better? Or do you paint flowers because they sell well in the art market? I paint flowers because they are my why. My why is finding joy, finding beauty, finding things that fill my soul with joy. And that is my why. Find your why and stick to it. If you are going to have a feast and you are laying out a table with a whole lot of stuff for people to come and feast on, if you put out things that maybe you don't like just to simply please other people, because we are people pleasers, are we not? And you put out a little bit of hot dogs, a little bit of pizza, a little bit of chocolate cake, a little bit of sushi. When you bring out the chocolate cake, people who maybe don't like chocolate cake are not going to come to your table to feast, are they? Because it's not really their thing. So my suggestion is, when you are creating a feast, put out the things that you love if you want to keep the people that love the same things as you at the same table. So you're not going to put sushi on your table if you don't eat sushi. Okay? The same applies to painting. Paint the things that you love, paint the things that give you joy, paint your why, and the people that are on the same page as you will find you and come along in your journey. Sushi lovers are not going to join you if you're only serving chocolate cake. Okay? And if you're serving chocolate cake and you suddenly throw up sushi, people are going to disappear like grease lightning. So stick to your why, stick to what you love to do, and stay true to yourself. And during this time of having your tap switched off, really get to grips with your why. Find your story. Why is it that you love to create artwork? Because it's a really important part of making sure that we stay on track with creating work that is true to ourselves and not feeling overwhelmed by everything that we see around us on social media. The other thing to think of is when you are wanting to turn the tap on, when you are wanting to start being creative again, you need to set a date with yourself. You know, that friend that you see in the shop and you say to her, we must get together for coffee sometime, but you never actually set a date. Chances are you're not going to meet that friend for coffee because you never actually made a date with her. So you owe it to your creative self to, once you are feeling like you are ready, your soul tank is replenished, you are feeling inspired, you are feeling ready to produce artwork again, set a date with yourself and keep that date. You owe it to your creative self. And if the universe has other plans for you and you made a decision that on Saturday afternoon you were going to spend the whole afternoon painting, and the universe had other plans and you couldn't do that, don't just say to that friend, oh, we'll meet again another time. Actually set a new date, because if you don't do that, you're not going to have that date. You're not going to get to actually do that. So you owe it to your creative self to set a date and set a constructive routine that this is the times when I am going to try and create. And if for some reason the universe has other plans that week, make a new date, but stick to it, because you owe it to yourself. You owe it to your creative self. And even if going into your space means tidying your space or cleaning your brushes or maybe prepping canvases for a new painting, the point is, though, that you showed up. Make sure that you show up. Show up and do something, because something is always better than nothing. The other thing that I very quickly want to remind you is your relationship with fear. Because when we are switching this tap on, and getting ready to create again, one of the biggest emotions that artists always have to deal with, besides feeling overwhelmed, is fear. We don't like to make mistakes. We are fearful of making mistakes. We are fearful that our outcomes are not going to be what they are expected to be. Now, I have a mantra in my creative community studio. The magic is in the mistakes. If you haven't made a mistake at some point during the day while you're painting, you haven't really painted. Because if you have not got to that place where you are even slightly fearful or anxious or feeling like, I don't know what I'm doing, then you are not reaching the absolute edges of your comfort zone. So with regards to fear, I'm going to encourage all of you to welcome fear into your studio as a friend. Welcome fear into your studio, to be present in your studio, because nothing great or exciting happens in life without a slight little element of fear. You think of giving birth to your first child, walking down the aisle, bungee jumping. You think of exciting, exhilarating things that happen in our lives. There is always a little element of fear or butterflies in your tummy, that feeling of nervousness. So why do we not want that to be present in our studios? It must be there. The difference is, though, that it mustn't stop you from creating. It needs to be present. Your fear needs to be something that you take arm in arm and encourage and sit comfortably with in your studio, because if you can embrace fear, you're in for an exciting time. You're in for a memorable time, okay? Let fear be your friend in your studio. Don't let fear or overwhelm stop you. And just lastly, before we end off, I want to remind you that just like any relationship, your creative self or your creative relationship needs some energy every now and again. So keep your creative romance alive. Now, if you think of a relationship that you've been in, how do you keep the romance alive? Every now and again, you've got to get out of your comfort zone and do something different, don't you? You need to maybe go out for a dinner date if you haven't done that in a while, or you need to walk along the beach holding hands. You need to keep the romance alive. You need to do something that just kind of brings a bit of energy back again. And it's same for our creative self. So if you're feeling a little bit flat when you when this tap is on and it's flowing, change things up. Bring a little bit of romance back into your creativity. Find a new tool to use, find a new color to explore, find a new palette to explore. Start your painting in a new way that maybe you haven't tried before. What if I put this color down to start? Whatever it may be. Change something up. Keep the creative romance alive in your studio. And find yourself an art buddy. Find yourself somebody that can hold you accountable for what you are doing, what you are making. Now, I know you're part of a beautiful community here, so perhaps your art buddies are part of your Constantia Berg group community, and that is where you find your creative buddies. But having a buddy, an art buddy or an art community to encourage you along is hugely important. We can't do this on our own. Painting in your studio can be quite a lonely place, and it can be quite a lonely thing to do. So bring along on your journey of creating others who are on the same pathway as you, who can encourage you, because I can tell you now that while you're having a bad day one day, and we all have bad days, your buddy might be having a flipping fabulous day. And it's that buddy who's having a fabulous day that is going to pull you out of that funk, or that community of creatives that you are part of is what is going to help you get out of that bad day and just start fresh the next day. So if you don't believe me that your creative soul tank is literally like a tank with a tap that needs to be switched on and off, I want to end off with returning to Mother Nature. You all know I love flowers, I love blooms. Nature forms a huge part of my inspiration and finding joy. If you take a walk along the beach and you watch the ocean ebbing and flowing, ebbing and flowing, think of your creative journey. Think of switching that tap on, switching that tap off. Our creativity ebbs and flows. The wave cannot build up to crash on the sand unless it has pulled back a little bit. And isn't that what the ocean does? The ocean is this wonderful, energetic force. Your creativity is the same. It's a wonderful, energetic force. But in order for it to surge forward and create, your energy also needs to pull back and gather. And so that pulling back and gathering energy is what allows you to produce again. And once you produce, you will need to pull back. You'll need to switch that tap off and replenish. And so you will be able to give again. And so your creative process becomes cyclical. Just like the ocean, there is an ebb and a flow. Switch that tap on, switch that tap off, and allow yourself that space to do it without hitting panic mode that I'm not creating, I'm not producing work, and will I ever be able to do this again? You will, and you can, if you think very carefully about what it is you are doing, who you are surrounding yourself, and how you are talking to yourself during that time of pulling back, switching the tap off, building energy, and being able to let out again. So if any of you are in that place right now, your energy is building. Remember that when the ocean is at its lowest tide, it means that the tide is turning. So even if you're still pulling back, some people take a day, some people take 2 days, some people take a week, for some people it's a month or two. If you are still pulling back in your creative process, know that when that tide turns, your creativity is going to be there in full force, like that energetic ocean, and ready to create again. So hang in there and be kind to yourself. Talk nicely to yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heidi. That was absolutely wonderful. I think you've given our members lots to think about, and maybe understanding how they're feeling and making sense of it all, of all this. Absolutely. Tell us about you actually run a creative community studio, which, how does that work?
So Creative Community Studio is something I've wanted to start for a very long time, because I always found that while people would come to in-person workshops, they found it easy to create when they were in a workshop scenario with a whole lot of people. But when they went home, they found they were overwhelmed with working on their own. And so I took a lot of the aspects that I've spoken about tonight, about building a community, building people to help you, building people to be a learner, to learn new things. I've always wanted to build a platform where I could help people from home, from the comfort of their home. And having time out and in lockdown obviously afforded me the opportunity to set this up. And I started Creative Community Studio, which is essentially an online platform. So it is a monthly membership. Members pay a small monthly fee, which is actually less than the price of a one-day workshop. And during the course of that month, every Tuesday, I release a new little video into our community. So the video will be a lesson that is based on, something different every single week. And we currently have a library of 37 little videos that are in our community. And for as long as you are part of that community, you have access to those videos to watch, rewatch, go back and have a look at. We also have a private Facebook group which forms a wonderful community place where people can post work, ask questions. It's the closest I can get to being in your studio helping you. And if you feel overwhelmed about having to work on your own. So I will often get people posting something and saying, how do I mix this color? Or Heidi, can you advise me about this composition? It's not working. So I check in with Creative Community Studio in our community platform at least 3 or 4 times during the course of the day to help any members that have posted questions or anything like that. And we also have a weekly get together. So we alternate between having a weekly live or a weekly Zoom call. So obviously the Zoom call is more personal because I can actually see the members. They can show me things that they're working on, ask advice or help. And then every second week we have a live with me, which is when I kind of chat about things that are more based on like coaching your creative spirit, or obviously asking questions if people have any questions that come up. But yeah, so it's a lesson once a week. It is a community platform where people can interact online, and it is a once a week one-on-one session with me to ask questions and obviously benefit from my experience as not only a teacher and a coach. The platform, though, is not meant to replace in-person workshops. Okay, I often get people saying, should I come to this instead of an in-person workshop? This is like an added bonus. It's like having a community of people with you in your studio when you are working on your own. And that is the time when people often struggle. Sorry, I've cut you off there.
I want to ask you, and that, the members can find, I think we did put all the links of how to find you on all the, on your website and on Facebook and Instagram, where they could look up how to, if they wanted to join your community, your creative community.
So they can either contact me via my website or email HeidiShedlock.com, Heidi@HeidiShedlock.com. They can contact me via either Instagram or my Facebook pages. If they want to ask any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
And then I just want to see if there are any questions from anybody. Okay, not at the moment. If anybody wants to ask a question, they can type it on the chat part. Otherwise, okay, I'm just looking to see if there's anything on my phone. No. And then the other thing is, Heidi, your art that you produce, your own art, your bridal bouquet art. How did that start, or how long have you been doing that? And
that started really by chance. I don't take a lot of commissions. I only take just a few at a time. I know lots of artists work only on commission base, taking on commissions. I I find that commissions can sometimes stifle your creativity if it's all you're doing. So I limit myself in the number I take. And I had a bride contact me. She had heard about a painting. So I had painted my own bridal bouquet. I'd painted my own bridal bouquet, and a friend of mine had told her about my beautiful bridal bouquet. And this bride contacted me and said, would I be happy to do hers? And it's really just spread via word of mouth to the point that I now only take so many bookings. So I will obviously advertise on social media. Spaces are open for bridal bouquets, and I will only take sort of 2 or 3, depending on the sizes of the bridal bouquets if they are wanting. But it is really something for me that has grown out of word of mouth. And it is something that gives me huge joy to be able to encapsulate those beautiful blooms from that special day for somebody. I think it just, those flowers will live on forever for them in that painting. And for me, that's something very special to be part of. So yeah, I think it's a part of my business that's grown by chance.
I think it's a fantastic idea. And especially the flowers are normally so fantastic, and for one day it's almost such a waste. So it's a wonderful way of preserving that memory.
Absolutely. And for me, flowers tell a story. Flowers tell a story, and there is nothing sort of a part of that day. Those flowers are telling your story. And part of the stories I tell through my bouquets or my paintings is the fact that flowers are a part of every celebration we have, whether it be lunch with friends and you put flowers on the table, or it be birthdays, or showing gratitude, or even in death we celebrate with flowers. So flowers have a story, and we show emotions through flowers that sometimes we can't say to somebody in words. When you want to tell someone something, that you care about them, that you love them, that you're thinking of them, or that you are so sorry for what they're going through, what do? We send them flowers. Flowers communicate the things that we find so hard to say sometimes in words. And I always say to people, my husband will disagree. He says I'm verbose. He says I talk too much. But for me, my happiest place to communicate is through flowers. It's through lines, through pattern, through texture, through color, through composition. That is my easiest way to communicate my own emotions rather than through words. So I think that is what's drawn me to the flowers and the blooms and the bouquets that I create.
Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. I'm sure, everybody must have a look at your website and find you on Facebook and Instagram and see what all these fantastic paintings that you do. Heidi, thank you so much. There's a couple of messages of thanks that have come through here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heidi, for a very inspirational talk. That was just what I needed, that bit about fear. Thanks, Heidi. So that's lovely. So I think, I definitely think what you've told us this evening is going to resonate with a lot of us.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
And I hope to meet you one day in person. And
I hope so too. And I hope you get to come down to KZN this weekend and see your family.
Hoping so. Hopefully I haven't heard anything. Okay. Thank you so much, Heidi. Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Bye.